Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back. Welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of January 24th in the year 2025. And we want to thank Keb Mo for that nice rendition of America the Beautiful. And let me say that throughout the history of my experience in working in the movement for social, political, and economic change, we've seen a lot of films that have turned us on, and we've shared a lot of films, and we've used a lot of films in our organizing. And back in the days of Rising Up Angry, we would have big meetings and we would show some films. And then this group of people started appearing and being around with a film collective called Kartemquin Films. And we're going to focus on Kartemquin Films today. We have two wonderful guests, Mar Garvey all the way from Ireland and Peter Kuttner all the way from on the west side of Chicago, or Oak Park maybe. And
the far west side.
The far west side. So I want to thank my son, Hal, our engineer, for helping me come up with some questions, because otherwise, who knows what I'd be asking you to. But the first thing I'd like to know from both of you is a little history of Kartemquin and how each of you got involved, and maybe a little bio, because Kuttner's been on the show a lot. Mar, it's her first time on, and we'll need to know a little bit more about her. So take it away, Mar, you go first.
Oh, well, first of all, thanks, Michael, and thanks, Al, for being behind the scenes in the engineering seat. It's so lovely to be here and lovely to chat to you all. So my journey started, I was a music journalist back in the day, and about 15 years ago, decided to follow my passion for film, and then just the journalism kind of side just made me fall into documentary. Have been working in the space ever since, about 15 years. And I moved to Chicago it was November 2019, and then started working in Kartemquin March 1st, 2020. So I was really in at the deep end with, couldn't swim in there. But I was working very closely with Tim Horsburgh at the time. And he really taught me, what Kartemquin was about, what the filmmakers were about, what the community was about. And I think, as crazy as the whole pandemic was, I think I was very privileged at the time to be able to see this community in action, at work on the ground. We all worked from home. I think I went into the office twice in that whole year. And I've been there ever since. So by my calculations, it's 5 years nearly I've been there.
What attracted you to Kartemquin? Just that they were documentary filmmakers and you were going in that direction, or you heard about them and sought them out?
Yeah, I had heard about them. So, like I said, I'm from Ireland, and the Irish government have this initiative it's for mid-career folks. They'll send you abroad, or you can either do a course abroad or meet filmmakers abroad. And the idea is then you come back to Ireland and you spread the good word. So in 2018, I applied for it, got it, and I found Margaret Byrne of Raising Bertie and some wonderful other films, Any Given Day. And I found her through a Google search, and then it opened up this whole web of, the Chicago community of filmmakers, Kartemquin, everything. And I was just so fascinated. So I went over to her I think I hung around her for about a month. She introduced me to so many people. And then I was super excited about how warm the community was there. To backtrack a little bit, I'd come from London, which is like super, super competitive. And I thought, this is such a warm, lovely, it's a big city, small town feel. All the cliches were true for me. So yeah, I did my best to come back. And then 2 years later, I was back working at Kartemquin, which was just, again, a privilege and a dream, honestly.
It's great to talk to you and hear about that. And Peter, how about you give us a little short bio, and then give us a little bit of history on Kartemquin, but we don't want to get hung up in the past. So leave plenty of room for talking about current and future projects.
Oh, absolutely. That's kind of what I'm really interested in being here. I have a lot of questions for Mar, because today's Kartemquin is not your grandfather's. Actually, I expect to be a grandfather any minute.
I hope.
Somebody's grandfathers. I guess, yeah, me and Gordon are the grandfathers here. I met Gordon Quinn. Oh, I should tell you something about the name Kartemquin. What does Kartemquin mean? Is this something out of the Russian Revolution? A word sounds like Potemkin. What exactly does this mean? It turns out it's very simple. It's like if three guys who are golfing buddies buy a fishing boat or a ski boat, and they each have equal partnership, they get equal partnership in the name. So three guys named Carter, Temener, and Quinn bought the boat. And that's where Kartemquin comes from. There are people who were around when I was who still call it Kartemquin. No one knows exactly what it means, but that's where it comes from.
Thank you.
You heard it here. Gordon and I actually met, believe this or not, in 1961 while I was working at Channel 11. And he was a sophomore at the University of Chicago. I should have been a sophomore someplace, but that's for another discussion, I think.
Another story.
Yeah. So I knew Gordon all the way along. I became a filmmaker before I became political. My filmmaking led me to a group in New York of documentary filmmakers, so-called radical. I didn't know what that meant at the time. I knew very few of the isms. I thought that wars were bad, that equality was good. That's about how deep it went. The year of 1967 through 1968 radicalized me a lot. Without telling the whole story, I'm sorry. I had been in 1965. I had gone to Selma, just mainly because it seemed like the right thing to do, and thought that maybe I would do something to make the world a little better and certainly more equal. Growing up in Chicago, which I knew even then as a kid, it was not an equal place. They still say maybe one of the most segregated cities in Chicago.
Peter, let me jump in here just for a minute, because you started to mention that group in New York, which was Newsreel. I had mentioned showing films at events, and some of those were Newsreel films. Was Kartemquin already around, or did it happen after Newsreel came?
No, Newsreel came to Chicago with me, actually. I'd left Chicago. I met them in New York. I really didn't think I'd be coming back to Chicago. They said they knew people who were organizing what the government called disruptions to the Democratic Convention. And New York, maybe it's like London, Mar. It's a pretty insular, is that maybe the word? I mean, they're really snobby, and it's really hard to break in, no matter what you're bringing to them. And I was frustrated and didn't see how I was going to fit in, and asked some of the leadership, who were very tight with SDS, Michael, and gave me three names, which I actually didn't recognize at the time, and said they have an office. If you go back to Chicago and help us organize for the Democratic Convention, they'll give you a space. I should say that I brought a stack of maybe 12 or 15 already produced newsreels, many of which are the ones that you're talking about that we showed. The office turned out to be the National Mobilization Against the War in Vietnam, and the three names were three of the seven, originally 8 conspirators: Tom Hayden, Rennie Davis, and David Dellinger. And I ended up spending that summer at a desk in that office, trying to book films and send them around. But immediately when I got back, I called every filmmaker that I knew in Chicago, and that included the Kartemquin Group, which at that time was Gordon Quinn and Jerry Blumenthal. They came to the original organizing meeting of Newsreel and said that they would help us with everything that we wanted to do, but they were basically doing something very similar. And what happened really very nicely for me was that the Democratic Convention put me in a funny position in that there was a moment during the famous police riot night where I didn't want to shoot film anymore. I wanted to participate in what was going on. And I took my camera home. I had a camera and was shooting. I took it home and sort of put my camera down to be more active. I wanted to be the people that were that making the history and that films were being made of. And in that period of time that I put the camera down was where I met you and got into community organizing. And I helped use films, but I wasn't doing too much shooting. Remarkably, in 1972, when Rising Up Angry decided to centralize, and I decided maybe it's time to use all my skills that I had. I was getting more and more serious about the revolution and somehow believing it was going to happen. That's the time that Kartemquin started its collective. And this is a period of history. There's early Kartemquin. There's I should actually want to hear what Mar's version of it is, the collective days, when Gordon and Jerry did this kind of remarkable thing. They had all the abilities to be commercial filmmakers, and they had made a lot of money making cinema verite documentaries. This was a hot style at the time, and has kind of become the standard in a way. Would you say, Mara? Is that fair to say, cinema verite? At least
back in the day, for sure. Yeah, I think now things are changing a little bit, especially when you say people make a lot of money making verite documentaries. That's definitely not the case these days, for sure. But yeah, I mean, the majority of films we work on now, they're cinema verite for sure.
Right. Well, it was a lot of money for Gordon and Jerry, living on the fringe as we all were. And they said, we, believe it or not, they said, we don't need all this money. Would it be that there were more people with money in the world who were like that? And they said, let's make some films that we really want to make, and let's find some filmmakers who will do it with us. And that turned out to be, I turned out to be one of those people. Yes, Michael.
I was going to say that we got a couple minutes left in this first segment before we take a break, but in my memory, I remember not only did I help you make the short film Trick Bag, which is about Rising Up Angry, but also wasn't one of the early films made by a friend named Jenny Rohr on the Chicago Maternity Center. Was that a Kartemquin film or independent of Kartemquin?
No, that was maybe the real thing that got Gordon and Jerry off the money. Was
some attention.
Yes, well, no, we want to help. Kartemquin said, we want to help filmmakers make the films that all of us want to made and need to be made. And it was Jenny and Suzanne Davenport were both activists in the Chicago Women's Liberation Union and in the women's health movement. And they were they were taking classes at Columbia College to learn how to make a film, just to do this. And because the political community is small enough, we all hooked up. And the Rising Up Angry film, which we had started in newsreel, became part of that. And I'm sorry, you had to be the one to mention that you, in fact, were a filmmaker in some ways in that, in one of the, I'm not sure what iconic means, but it certainly is one of the better known early Kartemquin films, collective films, I should say, called Trick Bag.
Yeah, well, I helped gather the talent for that, the different groups of people. We're going to take a short break. I just want to say that your cohort, Betsy Leonard, in an email I got from her, talked about the how important our work is to democracy. We're better informed, better connected, and enriched when more voices and stories are heard. And that is certainly something that Kartemquin has been doing for nearly 6 decades. Let me ask you, Mar, to talk a little bit about what's going on these days. It's my understanding there are 5 new films on the way. There's a program called Diverse Voices in Docs program. There may be more information that I don't have. Sock it to us.
There's a lot going on, Michael. So first and foremost, we've moved. We were in our old home for 50 years. So that was the big kind of move. We started to move out last June and then went through packing and permits and contractors and all the rest of it. And we're now in the process of moving into our wonderful new space at Kimball Arts Centre. And it's just such a wonderful hub. It's full of creatives. Our new space is bright, it's accessible, and we hope that it'll be very welcoming. So we want filmmakers, again, like 1901, we want filmmakers to come by to work. We want them to come by, say hello. We want them to come by and hang out. So we're very excited about that. That's probably the biggest news over the last couple of weeks. And yeah, like you say, we've just onboarded, just before we broke for the winter break, we onboarded 5 fellows for the Diverse Voices in Docs program. That was started by Gordon and Margaret Caples. That is 5 short films. We focused on short form content and short films for this year. And then we have currently 17 features in production. So it's a lot. There's a lot going on. But I'm most excited about, and kind of back to what Peter is saying, that there's literally for kind of most issues that we're dealing with now, we have a film for, and we almost have a film from the old catalog that will be complementary to it. So we're still making the kinds of films that we always made, you know, about current issues. We're making sure that filmmakers who are filming in the communities are from the communities. And just kind of doing our best to support those filmmakers to get their stories told.
Congratulations on the move to the new office. I remember the old one, which was over by the old Stewart and Warner plant, and had some good memories from there. I'm wondering if either of you, when you're in the process of this great move to the new place, found any great footage on the cutting room floor.
Oh, I know we found a lot of stuff hidden, like.
No, I just heard a joke.
Well, that's actually a really good question, Michael. The sweeping of the cutting room floor and finding all those things started years ago when we realized that we had these hundreds of thousands of feet of film, and there was hardly a place to store it and what was going to happen to it. And we ended up agreeing with Washington University in St. Louis
good place.
for the whole of the archive to go. And they were coming up, even today, they come up with pieces of film with questions of what's this and where did it come from. So that's actually a really good question. Maybe Mark could tell us a little more about where the archive's at, and if people hear something that's of interest here, can they now go online and see if they can find something?
Sure. So I can't speak for how they're working with the archive online, but certainly if anyone is looking for anything, they can contact any of us at KTQ, because the Andy and the team down at WashU, they've just been incredible to work with. They've been so generous with sharing their process. We all went down as a staff a couple of years ago, and it was fascinating to see their rooms and where our stuff is physically, you know, and while they're digitizing everything and while they're putting all the information online. I think the archive itself was only there a couple of weeks or a month before some of the professors started actually integrating the material into their classes. So it's just wonderful. And we've been so lucky. And shout out to Elise, who did incredible work with Gordon on the archive, getting it there and getting it in shape to move.
Well, as we get older, we get more interested in archives.
You're not wrong.
But, I'm working on what I do with all of my stuff. But let me make a little shift here. Kartemquin used to be really focused on Chicago, and it's made sort of a shift to now making films that are for the whole world or from various places. and they all deal with universal issues, whether it be racism, gender, that kind of thing. How about a little bit on that, either of you, about the sort of shift to beyond just Chicago?
Yeah, I can jump in that. Like we're definitely predominantly Chicago still, but we're definitely focused more on regional, like Midwest filmmakers too, because while I mean they're still under resourced, but there are resources in Chicago where there aren't in the likes of Omaha or even Milwaukee, where I'm based, or further up north. So we really want to be mindful if we're a Midwest production company that we're encompassing the Midwest. I know there's some controversy around which states are in the Midwest, but as far as I'm concerned, it's all the Midwest. But yeah, we're very much still Chicago. You know, I think over 50% of the David folks are from Chicago, based in Chicago. A lot of our filmmakers too are from Chicago, from the Midwest, but might live now in New York. So it's great, or LA or whatever. So it's great to have them, and you know, keeping their connection to the Midwest and expanding ourselves as well across the US and internationally is the hope eventually.
You know, I did a quick review last night that between I think the college, I don't know if do they consider the college the first Kartemquin film, if not the first Kartemquin film from the mid 60s all the way up until the late 80s. When the WLUW film was made, there's no footage that wasn't shot in Chicago or in Illinois, you know, the Midwest. And it's really interesting to look at the new catalog or the newer catalog and see how, even though we were staying within our neighborhoods and our films were about our neighborhoods, dealing where we were living and we were working, dealing with those universalities that Michael mentions. In '88, we finally start to branch out, and now it's pretty remarkable. And I don't think it's a coincidence that someone from outside the Midwest. Well, you lived in. Did you live in the Midwest of Ireland?
Yes, I'm literally from Clare's, County Clare's, the Midwest of Ireland. So
well, there you go.
Right on to the Midwest.
I consider the Midwest the Midwest to me is all the states between California and New York.
Exactly.
So that's really good. And I read an interesting quote about you where you saw filmmaking as having no frontiers at all. So yes. That's interesting. What new Kartemquin projects go outside the Midwest? Although they may well be Midwest filmmakers.
Yes, exactly. So one Midwest filmmaker, Bridie O'Connor, she's a director. She's actually based in New York at the minute. We have a project with her. It was part of the Hulu Kartemquin Accelerator program a couple of years ago. She's still in production, and it's a feature on Barbara Hammer, a queer artist. She is very much connected to the Midwest, comes home to the Midwest, but is also very much a New York filmmaker. That then informs her style, which is a bit more experimental. You know, she's using a lot of archives, so we're working with her a lot on that. So, but Bridie would be a great example of that, where it's Midwest, but outside of like what we're calling Midwest, but Midwest sensibilities, I guess. And that's definitely her approach to filmmaking. And as well, it's her approach in how she acts in the community. She's a very generous filmmaker. You know, she's very quick to say, if anyone is at a film festival, let other KTQers know, which we love. So yeah, we've got a few films like that are very much Midwest filmmakers that have kind of spread their wings a little bit and often come back to the Midwest. But
did I hear you say Hulu, as in the streaming?
Exactly, yeah. So I don't know if you know, we have it's a program we started on foot of Minding the Gap, being Lou's film, that came out 2016, 2017. And it was such a success that Hulu approached us and said, we'd love to partner with you because we really want to find these different voices. We want to find the filmmakers that we may not be in our orbit as like a commercial streamer. And since then, we've picked 2 Hulu projects every year. And they've ranged from, like, this year, we just before the holidays, we onboarded 2 projects from their Indigenous storytellers, filmmakers. The year before was LGBTQ plus stories. I don't know if you know Colette Gunham's project, Traces of Home. That'll be out this year. She was originally part of the Hulu Accelerator. So we've had some amazing filmmakers come through that program.
Tell us, that goes back to old school Kartemquin, Colette's film, in that it's a local neighborhood. Can you say a little about the film so people know what it's about?
Yeah. So Colette's Chicago based. She's a nomad now. She's traveling. She did a lot of her post work in San Francisco. But she's Chicago, grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. Her film is about her family. Her dad is Palestinian, her mom is from Mexico, and it was really a journey. She followed them for years just to capture their sense of home. She traveled with them back to their home countries to kind of find out what was going on there now, to reconnect with family there. And yeah, her film will be out this year, like spring, summer this year. And we're very excited to see her, but she's very much Chicago, born and raised, and now.
You know, before Hulu, there was Hoop Dreams, and I think it would be fitting to share a little information about the Hoop Dreams film, because it really was one of the films that put Kartemquin on the map. Yeah. And it's a great basketball film based in Chicago, and it just celebrated some anniversary. I don't know. They had some event.
30 years?
It did. Yeah, it was 30th anniversary. So yeah, during just the end of the summer, the biggest celebration with that was we worked with partners and opened a renovated court in Humboldt Park. And it's beautiful. If you go to our website, you'll be able to see it. We have the address up there. And it's just this gorgeously renovated basketball court, and the original VHS, but the DVD cover image is the mural that's on the court there. And it was a wonderful celebration, very community focused. It was about William and Arthur from the film and their families, and we were kind of just there in a supporting role, but it was wonderful to see. And the legacy of it, like, it's an incredible film. Even people here that I say I'm working with Kartemquin, they won't have heard of Kartemquin, they might have heard of Hoop Dreams, you know.
Oh yeah, everyone knows Hoop Dreams. Let me ask both of you for what is your favorite Kartemquin film, if you have one? Whether it's Hoop Dreams or whatever, Trick Bag, who knows? There's a lot of them. Peter, what do you got?
Well, I'd be remiss not to say Trick Bag. No producer is right here, but it is. I think it has amazing staying power, but not to the credit of the filmmakers, because the film's about racism, and racism rears its ugly head. It's a sickness that certainly I can't figure out.
No, it's the deal. It's why the divide in the country, whether people want to admit it or not, race is the basis of all of a lot of problems. That people don't give up on this white supremacy notion, whether they're aware of it or not.
Well, that regular listeners of this program will know that the community organization Rising Up Angry was one of the, at least in the 60s, was one of the major anti-racist groups, and was trying to address racism in the neighborhoods in Chicago.
We do have a new book out on Rising Up Angry, and if anyone ever wants to support this show, they'll get it as a gift. So keep going. Sorry.
Wait, it's Mar's turn to say we have a new book on Kartemquin right now.
We have a new book.
And if anybody wants to support the Kartemquin community, they should look for
together.
That. But
Mar, what's one of your favorite films from Kartemquin?
Oh, Mar. I've loads. My two of the older films, Winnie Ride, Age 11, I just adore that film, and Inquiring Nuns, the classic. And Inquiring Nuns, it gets so many requests for screenings now. Like, it played at the BFI in London last summer. There's not a month that goes by that we don't get someone wanted to screen it in a classroom or, as part of a conference or event or even in an art space. I just love that film. And I particularly love it because I don't think you could do that today. Like, that would look like a different two nuns going around the streets of Chicago asking, "Are you happy?"
They all online, and what's the website?
Yeah, so it's kartemquin.org. A lot of the films, the older films, we have control of, and then some of the newer films, because it branches off into various distribution and rights. But on our website, you'll see where to go to watch them. And if you can't find them and you want to watch a film, reach out, mar@kartemquin.org, and I will happily send people in the film's direction.
You know, back when Kartemquin was founded in '66, it was done so guided by the principle of cinematic social inquiry. This sort of sounds more vital than ever. How does that manifest in the current media and political climate?
I was around for those days, and it was interesting that how Kartemquin followed the times, in that Kartemquin would probably not remake Inquiring Nuns by the time we got to the 70s. It was a perfect film for the middle 60s when it was. But as people got more and more into action and seizing control of their destinies and things, as the Black Power movement came in, as women's liberation came in, or what we called it, that then gay liberation, the films became more about people making choices and following people who were fighting the system in a way. I'm not as familiar with the catalog into the next century, but I'm wondering if Mar could see if there is something relative to social inquiry or social action in what we're doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for that question, Peter. I mean, from Ashley O'Shea's Unapologetic that came out in 2020, and a lot of those films were they didn't get the kind of kudos they would have gotten because of the pandemic, and, you know, streaming went a bit crazy. But that was about the Black Lives Matter movement. Right now in production, Jenny Shee's new film, it's untitled at the moment, but that is centered on the US government's treatment of and suspicion of Chinese scientists and professors and teachers and academics. Very relevant when you even listen to Trump's dreadful speech the other day. So the films that we have now are absolutely relevant the way the films back then were relevant. But again, as I mentioned before, even the films in production now and the newer films that have been released, we could probably find an older catalog film with similar themes that is a lovely companion to it. So yeah, we're still on the ground. We're still making the films about the issues as they're happening, and not, as Gordon says, not kind of waiting for things to happen, being there, filming them as they're happening.
What are some of the films that are in production, and what's next for Kartemquin?
Great question, Michael. So one of the biggest ones, and probably the one that will be out the soonest, is we partnered last year with Joffrey Ballet in Chicago. And we filmed with them for their Winning Works program, which is a program for choreographers of color come in from all across the world, come into Chicago, work at the Joffrey for a couple of weeks with students. And then they put on this show at the end. So we followed them for a couple of months. And Matt Taylor and director Can B, they've been working in post for the last few months. That's going to be out in the spring. We're very excited about that because it's we hope, the giant Chicago institutions kind of working together. Other films, we've got a film called Crime and Parody with Will Thwaites as the director. That's going to be out at the end of the year, about a comedian who made a joke online and ended up in jail. Again, very relevant, very, what can you say online now, right? When even 2 weeks ago, it was probably not as censored as it is now. So yeah, but they're the kind of two immediate ones that will be out. And then over the next, say the end of this year and then into the following year, again, we'll have Jenny's film I mentioned, the Untitled Scientist Project. We have a couple of the Hulu films to be out. I mentioned Barbara Hammer. That biography about the artist Barbara Hammer will be out towards the end of this year into next year. We have another great project called Unlocked. It's about a trans prisoner who, when they were in jail, founded this coding lab, and the lab is super successful now, and they're out in the real world and doing all this activism and work around that. So we've got a bunch of themes. We've also got a sports basketball one coming out about EJ Lee, Jason Ree's film. We've got so many. It's, 17 of them, but a lot of them will be out like the end of this year into next year, which we're very excited about.
It's very funny when I hear a Hulu as a partner of Kartemquin.
Yeah.
When it took decades to get Kartemquin Films and films like them on television at all. I mean, what there's almost 2 generations that may not know or remember that we're not working with video. We weren't working in a way that everyone could see it. We'd have to take film projectors to places to show them. We'd find churches. We'd find classrooms. It's pretty amazing to hear that. What's really one really remarkable thing that a lot of people don't know is that Gordon Quinn, one of the founders of Kartemquin, was very active in getting public television to show independent voices in a way. In fact, there's a program called Independent Voices. There's a program called POV, or Point of View, where they weren't taking corporate-sponsored documentaries only. They were really showing some voice. And I think, unless I missed it, Mar, could you be a little more specific of what Diverse Voices is, where it came from, and what communities it addresses, or filmmakers?
Yes, absolutely. So again, like I kind of mentioned earlier, it started with Gordon Quinn and Margaret Caples from the Community Film Workshop.
I should mention, I'm sorry, Community Film Workshop is almost as old as Kartemquin,
right?
But serving the Black community.
Exactly. So
this is an important point.
Yeah, so Diverse Voices in Docs is for BIPOC filmmakers, Chicago-based, definitely Midwest-based, if not Chicago-based. It's been going now. We celebrated our 10-year anniversary a couple of years ago. It's been going for a long time. It's been, it's a priority it's the mission side of Kartemquin. When we talk about partnering with Hulu and, that kind of like more commercial streamers, it really is the DVID fellows and the DVID alum that our work is for, that we look to for these exciting films in communities and stories that aren't in the mainstream. And we have 2 people working in programs, Haiti and Sydney, who do incredible work with DVID in supporting the fellows. I mentioned that this year is the first year we've done shorts. We have 3 short films, and then we're going to have 2 shorter film concepts that are going to be part of larger feature films. They range from, I have the list here because there's so many of them. They range from, there's a film about the connection between the salt industry in Siwa, Egypt, to Chicago. There's a film about an American car club in Chicago. There's a film about ancestry and ancestral healing. There's a film about an Arab American activist in Detroit. And there's also a film about a Haitian American filmmaker is looking at the Haitian American community in Springfield, Ohio. So again, diverse in name, diverse in nature. There's so many themes in there by incredibly brilliant filmmakers that hopefully over the course of a year, it's a year-long fellowship, and we offer Kartemquin staff as support, and then they also get mentors and mentorship.
We're running out of time, but I want you both to take 20 seconds and tell me a little advice to young filmmakers. Peter, you go first.
It's such a different world. It's hard for me to give any advice. but look for advice is the key thing. You may know exactly what the film you want is and how it's going to work, but one of the great things Kartemquin does is that it gives advice. There's a way to put your film and your film idea in front of Kartemquin, and they will screen it with other filmmakers who will offer their advice.
Well, you got any advice? Or that's
I have loads of advice, but my main advice is to just get out there and do it. And there's a lot of negativity in the film industry. There's a lot of what we can't do, what we're not getting, all the rest of it. And to be a cliched about it, I would say focus on the donut, not on the hole. You know, they're talking about distribution is in a terrible state, but does that mean then that there is a space you can jump into because the gatekeepers are gone? Pick up your camera, go out and tell your story, write your treatment, just do it honestly. I think that's the best advice I can give.
I want to thank you both for coming on. I want to thank Mar